CrimeView FireView customer webinar series, and this month we're talking specifically to our FireView customers. So I'm glad you've joined us. This webinar does take place every third Wednesday of the month, although we try to be specific, so you may not get a reminder or this is what we're talking about every single month if it's a CrimeView, but today's topic is specific to FireView. We do want to encourage questions. If you have any questions, please go ahead and enter them into the GoToWebinar dashboard. If that dashboard collapses, you can expand it by clicking on that orange arrow and it'll expand for you. We'll get to as many questions as we have time for, or follow up afterwards if we don't get to that. So today you have the pleasure of listening to Chris Baldwin, who is our TriTech account executive that's been working with our analytics products for quite a while. Chris came to TriTech through the acquisition of the Omega Group. He brings 15 plus years of experience in business development with GIS and public safety. You can see on the slide below, he is a graduate of Eastern Michigan University with a degree in urban and regional planning with a focus on GIS and a minor in local and government law. So we're really delighted to have Chris walking you through the FireView Advanced Reporting module today. And with that, I'm going to hand things over to Chris. Good morning or afternoon, Chris, depending on what side of the country you're on.
Thanks, Sherry. Good afternoon to you. Good morning for those on the West Coast. Where I am, where it's a little bit chilly down here in Southern California, and to everyone else, hello. Thank you, everybody. And yeah, today we're going to take a look at the FireView Advanced Reporting module. This is tailored for fire. I know, and I expect some folks on the law enforcement side might peer in as well at some point, either during this recording or at a later date. And I think, especially with regards to the latter part of this discussion, the how-to for frequently asked questions, the same technology looks and feels a lot like what the folks in blue wear as well, and for that matter, some of the same tools are very similar in how they function. And I think there's something to learn, no matter what your role might be in with regards to the department you work for. So it's a good starting point. Why do I have the ARM? ARM is the Advanced Reporting Module, and in the sense of fire, right, or across the board, data helps to drive decisions, whether it's visual or it's report focused. It's there to support the operations. In many cases, those who have acquired FireView or purchased FireView over the past, they're really focused on addressing a core issue, and that one being accreditation. We see a lot of that, where you're assessing deployment capabilities to establish baseline and benchmark standards. In fact, the entire accreditation process, which is data driven, FireView plays a key role in really helping to tease out a lot of that information. And that supports the different aspects of that process, from determining community risk and safety needs, where you might examine and analyze the demand for emergency services. Sometimes that's done geographically, using maybe a dashboard itself, or temporally, as well as by the different incident attributes, type of incident, call type, call nature codes, infers data, mutual aid, so on and so forth. Also, it's in the evaluation of the performance of the department itself, right? The review of data immediately and at scheduled intervals can avoid having small issues become larger ones down the road. So it's sort of that ongoing evaluation of how we're doing as a department. And in doing so, we can start to see things like process time, turnout, and travel time data. And it really ensures that we're able to hold ourselves accountable and able to address any portion of that response matrix directly within our own department. It's also, as you look at this, sort of a plan for the improvement in the performance of the department. Oftentimes that strategic plan represents long-range goals of the department and the performance objectives that are needed to support those goals. And again, you hear it over and over again, it's based on the data itself. Data drives the decisions that we make. They help us defend the decisions that we make. And in FireView, and the Advanced Reporting module really allows us to identify trends in call type or infers data, call volume, as well as if you're using some of the dashboarding and mapping components, really see that community distribution. So you can also plan for the future deployment of resources. So these are some of the things that we think about. And using the technology helps us to not only a managed performance, but course correct where we need to. And our data, again, should drive that decision. This system has a variety of reports that are dashboard style reports where they help peer into the information we have. You can see that we have an array here from incident reports to response, an effective response force reliability. If it's an ERF report, we're amassing an effective fire force or response force to different infers activity, aligning with NFPA 1710, maybe touching on 1720. Maybe we're looking at resource allocation to understand and evaluate our auto aid expectations, being able to see how much time is spent giving aid versus that which we receive, right? Or maybe we're looking at NFPA 1221 codes through our response time fractals, where we want to look at emergency alarm processing to make sure that 90% of those are being completed within 64 seconds. We can do these kind of things, and we can work with your data to do that. These reports are not finite. Oftentimes, agencies will ask for a different type of report that they're used to seeing and want to work with. We're all ears, and we're prepared to expand this report package to align with that and share those same reports that might benefit you to other agencies that are more than likely going to start looking at and wanting to do the same thing over time. Let's shift a little bit more into an interactive mode. We're going to kind of look at how we use the ARM, our advanced reporting module, going forward. In a way, it's a tips and tricks. In a way, it's a result of the how-to questions that keep coming back from some of our users out there, and let's step through that. We'll touch on 4 areas. Number 1, an application overview, which really will serve for those individuals who may not have this technology yet and might be peering into this recording at a future date. We'll talk about the selection of data. We'll talk about how this is tailored to align with your own requirements or guidelines for evaluating performance in your community with the report parameters. And we'll look at some bookmarking features which allow us to save certain types of queries and return to those at a future date, and trust that they'll deliver what we're looking for and we can't break it. So we'll go back and forth. Looking at an application overview, this is the general interface, right? You take a glance and your eyes kind of wander around this page. These are dashboard style reports where really a bulk of it is the report itself, but there are other elements, controls that we have along the perimeter of our environment as well. The report templates that we have itself are always aligned along the top, and we can tab through those. We have current selections where we can interact after we interact with the data and make selections from our attribute filters. Those selections pop up so we can always see what we're looking at. We've got search bar and searching capabilities where we can bypass making selections directly from the attributes in the report itself and do a keyword search, almost like a federated search against the entire FireView database or repository. And variety of temporal selections and bookmarking and sharing and PDF controls along the top as well. Some of the key elements, and let's just kind of focus on selecting data itself, selecting data in the reporting environment. It's a few key things that keep coming up. Remind me what I'm looking at, remind me what selections I've made and how to interpret that. You'll see this in a moment, but what you're seeing right now on the slide is there are listing of the different attributes and the different values that are associated with those attributes from the reports itself. You'll see me work with making selections. When I make selections, they'll highlight in green. If I move from one attribute to another, you'll see some of our attributes and our values are in white, representing possible values that are related to the report we're looking at, and we'll see others that are in gray. And let's go ahead and hop over there for a moment and take a look at that. So let me go ahead and refresh my screen. We're seeing the same thing we saw on that slide. We're seeing incident reports on the far left to response reliability on the far right. We're already seeing some selections in here, and I'm going to go ahead and clear my selection, and you'll see that this incident report that's focused on what we call variable summary is showing me by default all the activity we've collected over the last 4+ years, going back to 2014. I want to narrow that search down from what presently is 45,313 incidents. And I want to focus only on those that were fire related over that same period of time. And with one selection, I've narrowed that down to about 1,300 incidents themselves. Now, let's go ahead and drop that down to a shorter date and time range. We'll just go ahead and look at what's happened year to date. And again, my selection now is down to about 39 incidents. All the while, my selection in green represents what we're looking at over here under the incident category. If I wanted to maybe zero in further on a specific type of incident or other elements of the report itself, I can do that. And the different values that show up, and if I enlarge this, you can get a clearer view here. These look like the inference codes, because in this case, we're tapping into an RMS, a fire RMS, and bringing that data over. And I can see some of these codes are listed in white and others are in gray. And that gets back to that green, white, and gray setting. If it's green, I've selected it. If it's white, there are values associated to that selection in the report itself. And if it's gray, it means there are no values associated to what's in that report. The 39 incidents are made up of about 10 different inference codes in the fire category. A little tidbit, what's noticeable about this as well, or it is for those who have used the system and maybe start to evaluate the results that you're getting, this reporting environment will show you the good, bad, and ugly. So if you have codes or records in your system which are test codes, test records, they are things that you're not usually wanting to report on for ongoing administrative reporting efforts. Those values will show up in here as well, and by virtue of that, this makes this environment a great place not only to run your reports, but to clean up your data. Show us what needs to be corrected in the source system, in your CAD system, in your RMS that we're pulling from. Let's hop back over to our PowerPoint, and we'll stay in this kind of mode here. But as I look back at those green, gray, and white selections, we also see on the same page some back and forth forward controls and a search tool. Let's go ahead and take a closer look at those items back in the ARM again. And we're right where we left off. We are looking at fire explosions. We're looking at the 10 or so different codes that popped up in 2018. If I wanted to see this information maybe distributed by district, I could do that as well. And I can re-summarize my data pretty quickly on that just with one click. But I have my search tool over here. And this gives us another way to drill into the data. So let's say my request is not so much that I want to look at all fires, but I want to look at activity maybe at a particular location. In this case, 100 East Chicago Street. I can bypass my tools here and go right to the search criteria, find the data I'm looking for, and again, call up those results for me in a moment's notice. That total number of records we have in here include 4 incidents, a total of 8 unit responses related to those 4 incidents as well, and we can even see that in here if we need be. So pretty powerful, just in its ability to drill down to the data based on the selections, based on the search criteria, and a current selections bar that kind of summarizes for us what we're actually doing. Kind of moving forward with our application overview, another element which is sometimes forgotten but good to know as you look at those reports along the top of the frame, or what I have listed here in this image, from incident reports down to response reliability. They are color coded, and with reason. There's something going on here. Of course, if it's in orange, it means that's the report we're looking at. Pretty quick and easy to interpret that. But what might be less knowledgeable or less intuitive and it needs explanation is that the report tabs themselves that are in gray, including the incident report selection, which is by default gray if it's not the active report, they all share the same attribute selection. Meaning if I set a bunch of filters for one report and I go over to another report, from incident reports to stacked calls, those same selections will be applied to that new report. And then to the right of all those, we have another set of reports that are in maroon. Good to know, those don't share the same attributes or attribute selections, that is. They operate independently. And with that in mind, you have to set your own controls for each of those particular reports. So we're back in the ARM. We're on that incident report tab. We have a selection here of 100, all the events at 100 East Chicago Street. If I click back, it actually takes me back one step to our previous selection, which were all fire and explosion events year to date. And as I tab through my reports here that are in gray, those same attribute selections are now available in my response analysis report. They're now available in my stacked call report, where we're looking at activity responded to by stations and by department as a whole, and which of those events overlapped concurrently with other events that were happening either at the station or the department level. As we navigate even further to the right into some of these maroon tabbed reports, we start to see different sets of controls, different sets of attribute filters that require additional input to produce the report, and in no means do they share the same selection criteria as we tab further between the gray reports and the maroon ones. This report we happen to be in right now, the command summary, gives us a nice quick view of the demand that we're seeing in our community for duration of time, and giving us the ability to compare that to the previous duration time, which kind of gives us a window into a KPI into what's important now, where are our resources being drawn to. So gray tabs share the same attribute selections, maroon tabs do not. As we navigate further down here, another element that has really made the advanced reporting tool a little bit more powerful for our users is the idea that there are report parameters in each of these tabs or in these reports, and you may have noticed some of them on there in the lower left-hand corner and the upper right-hand corner. In this particular report, the parameters are tied to our effective response force report. Those parameters allow us to fine-tune the report to reflect our own guidelines that we use for performance or for measuring performance for response to the incidents that we deal with. In this case, the effective response force has parameters where we can select, what if we focus on response time, which would be your turnout and travel combined in terms of part of the response matrix, or we're looking at travel time alone, as well as setting the parameters for how many persons are required on the collection of units that respond to during an effective fire force, and what our threshold may be, whether it's defined as 10 minutes associated with a department time and following some of the NFPA standards that are out there, or we can increase or decrease that based on our own collective capabilities. Each of these tabs in here, as you look around, will have their own set of report parameters that further allow us to fine-tune what it is that we need to look at and what it is that we need to see with each of these reports. And that makes it powerful because it means we're not just adhering to an NFPA 1710 code or some national guideline. We're allowing you to adhere to your own guidelines. As we look a little bit further, I get this from time and time again, the idea of the bookmarks. I want to be able to save what I'm doing. That's pretty easy to do, but we'll walk through it again. What's important to know is that once you've created a bookmark, you can't get rid of it, or you can't screw it up unless you permanently delete it, and that's another function. So use a bookmark to get you a report you're looking for repeatedly, and use it as a way to build other bookmarks that are similar in nature, similar in search criteria, but have no fear, you're not going to break a bookmark by playing around with this unless you actually choose the star minus button that says, do you want to remove a bookmark that's in our system? So the tools are up here. We've got a select bookmark drop-down menu, which will show us the bookmarks that we've saved. We've got a repository tool, which allows us to go back and edit existing bookmarks we've created. And we've got a add and remove bookmark by the plus star plus, star minus symbol to allow us to do just as we described. And we'll do one of these in a moment here, but at quick glance, these are the different GUIs that we work with. Adding a bookmark allows us to do things like create a name that will allow us to quickly and easily recall it for whatever it may be. We can choose to share bookmarks with other users in our department by clicking a box there. Means if I make the bookmark and I click that, others who want to look at that same report can make it part of their repository as well. We can also have it remember certain settings in the report itself, as well as the state or the layout where we are in the report. It will remember those settings as need be. And then we have some pop-up and description controls that allow us to provide us reminders of what that report is in further detail once we've decided to look at it. Of course, there are the remove bookmarks and repository tools as well. Let's go ahead and take a look at these in our system. Those same tools are located at the top. My plus, my minus, my remove bookmark, and those that I have in here. I already have a couple in here that I can quickly call up, such as my resource allocation, auto aid given for engines by year or year to date. And I can see what our demand is quickly, or more in particular, what our total unit hours on incident are for those that we've, for that automatic aid that's been given to our neighboring communities. Again, I might want to go back there and look at, in this case, you know, for Pingaree Grove, where we were providing that demand too, we could also look at the auto aid received from that same area and see if we're in balance or not, right? Or I could hop over to my effective fire force report, kind of a quick bookmark back to where we saw some of those earlier report parameters. In this case, showing me last month's activity and telling us that of all the incidents that were responded to, we had one where we attained or amassed an effective fire force. We were focused on building fires. We had one where we didn't, and we had 7 that were excluded for various reasons, usually related to engines or other resources being called off. Let's say we want to create another report. We got a request for a report to look at activity, vehicle accidents with injuries. Maybe we want to look at that over a period of time. I can go ahead and build a report first, and then I can go ahead and bookmark it for future use. And so what I'm going to do is hop into a new tab, our activity report. We'll go ahead and look at activity on a monthly basis. And in this case, the request came to look at my vehicle accident with injuries. I know that's code 322. So instead of looking for it in a drop-down menu, I can just type that in and find it. And I start to paint the picture for what I'm looking at. Right now, I see that presented with a look at activity over a long period of time, as well as by apparatus type. Let's get a little bit more tight in our view. Let's look at just the last 24 months. And you know what? Let's go ahead and look at that just by the incident category itself. And we're starting to see sort of what that flow looks like during the winter months. Last year was a particularly bad winter. We saw a spike of activity, of these types of activity back in January 2017, kind of leveled off here. We want to be able to monitor that activity over time. Let's go ahead and bookmark that. I can click on that star plus feature. I can go ahead and give this a name. We'll call it activity report, colon, vehicle accident with injuries. Or maybe if I'm good with my my codes and I know them and others know them, I can just simply put in my 322. I want to share this with others, so that's a selection we're going to make. I want that layout state to be remembered. I also want to remember my input field values, and I want to have a pop-up menu or window that allows everyone to see a description. Maybe we'll just put a reminder that select month or duration of time. One thing to note that in our bookmark settings, the temporal aspects are not permanently saved. So that's why it's a good reminder. Go in there and select month or duration of time to reflect what you're interested in. is a good note to put in there for someone who may not be as familiar with the system. And that now has been memorialized in our bookmark setting at the very bottom of that list. Let's go ahead and navigate away. We'll go back to our effective fire force report, and then we'll navigate back to the new one so we can see how that performs. I'll hit on the activity report, vehicle accident with injuries. You see that I get a little pop-up menu saying duration of time. Select the month of duration of time. I click OK. If I want to look at activity over a shorter period of time, I can do that. And I can come in here and combine my categories and make other changes as I need to as well. But it called back up for me the report we were looking at, the vehicle injury, accident with injuries report. So these are some of the features and elements of the advanced reporting module that come up frequently for us. I think we're always continuing to learn and listen and learn about other ways we can help improve the technology and help with the adoption of the technology within your organization. So at this particular point, we'll look for questions, and if there are no questions, we'll wrap it up. If we have some questions, we might have a moment to take a look at those. Part of that is to receive and learn more about what are some of the features, what are some of the tips that we can provide, and the features that you want to know more about. And we can, of course, look to do this again at a future webinar. So let me see if we have any questions. And we had one question out here. It's a good question. How does this integrate with GIS, and can I do maps of the report results? So a couple thoughts on that. The ARM is an extension to the advanced to the FireView dashboard, or if you're law enforcement, the CrimeView dashboard application. It works off of that platform. That is a GIS platform. In combination with that, the ARM and the dashboard look at the same geographic database or geographic information system that we've created. This is really an aspatial environment where we're not really working with the maps per se. We're working with the data, and like I said, we're teasing out information within the data. Oftentimes our users that have this will have FireView dashboard as well, or CrimeView dashboard, and they'll use that as a platform to run a map that is associated with one of the reports that have been derived in the ARM. A lesser known element to that, but something to think about, because this system, the ARM, is built off of and reads data from that geographic information system that we've created in FireView dashboard or CrimeView dashboard. The data processing that we do to build that database includes the capability of us at the middleware level running spatial queries against against your incident activity, such that the different attributes that you may see listed in the advanced reporting module, like I'm showing you right now, could actually start to reflect some of the some data that might not be collected in the report itself. For example, a council district layer or a neighborhood layer, where we might want to look at incidents relative to unique neighborhoods or council districts. Through that middleware we use to create the geographic database that FireView dashboard and FireView ARM look at, we can carry over new and unique attributes and make them part of the filtering capability here, and thus allow me to ask things like, show me all activity in District 1 or Council District 1 or the University Place neighborhood. Gives us a pretty unique way of leveraging GIS in an environment that is otherwise not intended to be map driven. So I hope that answers the question that came up. If you have other questions after this presentation, please feel free to follow up directly with your account manager, your customer success liaison, or myself. Happy to get on the phone and talk with you through those questions or respond to emails. That's what I'm here for. And I want to thank everyone for your time today, and have a great day.